numbers on YouTube with like the bit rate and whatnot. I don't know. I hope not. Jesus Christ, that would suck.
Okay,
Matt,
so can you hear me?
yeah, can you see the weird numbers on top of your avatar on YouTube or not?
No, I can't. I'm not looking at YouTube right now.
Oh, okay, hold on. Let me look at YouTube to see if those weird numbers are popping up like with bitrate and whatnot. If not, it's okay. If it is, I just don't, God knows what I'm going to do. Yes, you can see it, but it's much smaller. So I'm just going to pretend they don't exist for now. Are you there, Matt?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, I don't know what to do about this because it's like showing all these weird numbers, and so let's see if maybe. Nope, this doesn't fix it. It's
Yeah,
not my camera.
I can't tell you because I have no idea how this video stuff works. I thought this was Janet's thing.
No, I know. I'm just Janet has had a family emergency, so she can't be here this week. So it's just going to be the two of us with our ADHD selves.
Oh, okay, excellent.
Yeah.
So as I wait for my allergy medication
And let's just wait for more people while I tweet this out, so that I don't know. We'll wait for more people.
Okay, cool. Well, the longer my allergy medication has to kick in, the better.
And no way. Oh, okay. Let me share this on Telegram too. Okay, and I'll tweet this out. And now we shall wait and see if anyone wants to watch us. So until we get somebody, I just don't see the point in actually doing things. So we'll just chat until we get somebody watching us.
Oh yeah, that's no problem at all.
And then I hope it won't be anybody psychotic who watches us.
Well, I mean, you never know. Like,
Yeah.
I
Bundy's nephew.
we all seem to be magnets for that, or I do anyway.
well, do you know about Ted Bundy, who like banged this, who got this woman pregnant when he was in death row? Like he banged somebody. He like the woman paid the guard, like she was a fangirl, and she paid the guard some money, and then so he looked away while they effed, and then I think she got pregnant. So Ted Bundy does have a child somewhere around in this world.
Interesting.
Is serial killing? Well, okay. Here is my theory about why only white people are serial killers. So if you kill one person and you're not white, there is a high chance that the police will still somehow track down on you. So your like murder rate will go down to. We got one person. Okay, let me see. Hello, Bandana Bender. Let's get lit. Alexandro says, welcome. These are my psychos, though. I love my psychos.
There you go.
I forgot what was I saying? Yeah, so then they get caught and get sent to jail, and their murder rate gets stopped at 1. But then because of white privilege, they can continue to, the police don't do shit, and they can murder. And like one of the worst examples is the Gary Ridgway, the killer in Seattle area, where so he basically raped and killed a Filipino girl who was a prostitute, and her dad literally led the police to his door. Well, there's 2 examples of this. So literally led the police to his doorstep and says, "This is the man who was with who took my dad." And then they didn't do shit for the next 20 years while he killed another 160 people. Then there's another one, which we've written an article about this in Historically. There was this boy from Thailand who was Jeffrey Dahmer had kidnapped. He had escaped, and then there was these two black women who had rescued him and called the police. But then Jeffrey Dahmer came back, and the police literally walked this little boy back into the house with Jeffrey Dahmer so he could like remove and eat his brains.
Yeah, he was Laotian.
Laotian, yeah. I actually wrote an article about this. So let me share that article.
Well, yeah, because the cop that brought the kid back into the house just retired in 2020 with full benefits.
And that's exactly why I wrote that bloody article, because that effing cop gets to retire, and it's so outrageous. But yeah, there we learned that the police have no constitutional duty to protect and serve.
No, that court decision actually came later.
No, that's not the court decision. No, that's a different court decision. But this is an example. We know how when people are like, oh, who's going to protect us from the serial killers if you defund the police or something stupid like that? Well, the police are not protecting you from serial killers anyways, you idiots.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, okay, let's see. Anything else we want to talk about? We want to just randomly talk ADHD about for another 2 minutes. We're going to let new audience members come in for till 7:10, which is 12:10 for you guys. So we'll talk about a little bit more nonsense until then.
Well, that works.
Yeah.
So, see,
I'm
out of serial killer. I'm out of serial killer facts.
Like, yeah, the serial killer.
I'm
what?
I'm out of serial killer facts.
Okay, well, I came up with two of them. Gary Ridgway. I know it's about how that's why all serial killers are white, because non-white people do not get that many free chances from the police to kill and kill again. Like their killing rate stops if they get arrested. See, serial killers are a social. If the police is competent, you don't have to have serial killers because you can get the bloody bastard the first time they kill somebody. Right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess I'm not exactly sure like what the racial demographic breakdowns are for serial killers. Like, I know there's that funny or that joke about how all school shooters are white. If you actually look that up, that's not remotely true.
Okay, but serial killers, okay, fine. I think a lot of them are white. I'm just saying that you don't have to have a serial killer in a society if the society works properly, where the police actually want to find crimes. Because the thing is that the serial killer target people who won't be missed, like prostitutes, people who are homeless, like they target the people who that society there's no pressure to catch. Then there's the BTK killer who basically taunted the police, and he was like, catch me, please catch me. So, yeah.
Well, actually, if you look into the documentary,
Matt, your mic needs to be turned up a little. Oh, hold on, let me turn you up. No, I need to turn you up. Okay. Fix it. Okay.
Actually, if you look into the BTK killer stuff, Dennis Rader, he was actually baffled that the police wanted to catch him. He didn't understand why they didn't want to just play cat and mouse with him for all eternity.
That's interesting. Okay.
He actually wrote in a letter to them, if I send you like a floppy disk with like pictures and stuff on it, can you track me based on that? And they were like, no, we totally can't track you based on that.
Wait a minute, this is bullshit. He wanted to be caught. I'm sure he could Google metadata.
No, he got caught before there was Google.
Okay.
Yeah, because Google didn't start until like 1998, I think.
I think he got caught in 2000. Okay, let's. Well, and then somebody asked about the Zodiac killer. Well, yeah, the Zodiac killer still remains uncaught unless you think it's Ted Cruz. Yeah. Do you think? Yeah. So. Yeah, it's very, like I said, it is a systematic failure of the police, and you don't have to have serial killers, in my opinion, if the police are properly, like, you can catch them when they're, like, 2 murders or 3 murders. You don't have to wait for 30 or something like that.
Ideally not.
Yeah. So, speaking of this, let's get. It seems like we have a good number, so let's get started. Hello, Wade. Wade is one of my favorites. So, hi, Wade. Здравствуйте. We need critical thinking. I mean, I like all of you. Hold on. Banana Bender says, "Have you killed Program to Kill by David McGowan?" I have not. Let's see. Where do we begin? Uh, uh, really good. Okay, so we will start with. I need to go get my phone. So, wait. The second Congress of the Communist International seems really long.
Yeah, it is. Like,
Yeah. Okay. So, oh, I like this one. Let's start with a turn in world politics, and I will refrain from reading it simultaneously in Russian, while but I need my phone in order to get it.
okay, no
Just
problem.
1 second.
Alright.
Okay. Hold on. Let me get rumbling.
Okay.
Ramakrishna, Ishvara. Okay. Okay. My chair needs to be fixed to be perpendicular. Okay. Okay. So now, can everyone hear me?
I can.
Okay. Let's get started. What do we do? Oh God. I already. What? I see something. Oh. Where am I? I got confused. Okay. 1 second. A turn in world politics. Do you want to read or shall I?
I can read it.
Well, you said you had allergies. Hold on 1 second. I got right.
Uh, yeah, but I mean, I can still read it if you want.
Hold on. What happened is that right now, just give me 1 more minute. I need to use a new browser because Yandex automatically translates it into Russian, and then that'll be a nightmare.
All right.
Yep. Okay. Okay. So, um, okay, I got it. Okay, start.
Uh, There's something of a holiday atmosphere in the pacifist camp. The virtuous bourgeois of the neutral countries are rejoicing. Quote, we've made our little pile out of war profits and high prices. Isn't it time to stop? We can't make more profits anyway, and the people's patience may not last to the very end. End quote. Why shouldn't they rejoice when Wilson himself paraphrases the pacifist declaration of the Italian Socialist Party, which only just recently passed an official and solemn resolution in Queenball to the effect that social pacifism is utterly unsound? It is surprising that in Avanti, Turati exults at Wilson's having paraphrased their Italian quote pseudo-socialist unquote pacifist phrases. Uh, it is surprising that in Le Populaire, I hate French. Anyway, the French social pacifists and Kautskyites lovingly unite with Tarati and Kautsky, who published in the Social Democratic Press 5 particularly foolish pacifist articles, which also, of course, paraphrase the talk events have brought to the fore about a nice little democratic peace. And the present does differ from the previous talk in that there is some objective ground for it. The ground was created by the turn in world politics from the imperialist war, which brought the people's utter misery and the greatest betrayal of socialism by Messrs. Plekhanov, Albert Thomas, Lejean, Scheidemann, etc., towards an imperialist peace, which will bring the peoples of greatest which will bring the peoples the greatest deception in the form of pious phrases, semi-reforms, semi-concessions, etc. This turn has taken place. One cannot know at the present moment, even those who direct and financial kings and the crown robbers are not in a position to determine this exactly. When this imperialist peace will come, what changes in the course of the war will precede it, what the details of that peace will be. Nor is it that important. What is important is the fact that a turn towards peace has been made. The important thing is the fundamental character of that peace. And these two circumstances have been made sufficiently clear by the preceding development of events. In the 29 months of the war, the extent of the resources of both imperialist coalitions has become sufficiently evident. All or nearly all possible allies of any importance among the nearest neighbors have been drawn into the slaughter. The strength of the armies and navies have been tested and retested, measured and remeasured. Finance capital has made billions, and the amount of war deaths shows the extent of the tribute to the proletariat and the propertyless masses.
Hold on. We need to do some internal advertising. We need critical thinking. Says hi, Wade Pilgrim. Get see here. Isha is a wealth of information and logic. Is in Russia and writing a book. Help me lobby her and other shows to get her on and grow her channel, please. Nothing will make me happier. And you know what? I love you guys because when I'm feeling a little down, you guys do the sweetest thing. So thank you so much.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Finance capital has made billions. The mountain of war debts shows the extent of the tribute the proletariat and the propertyless masses must now pay for decades to the international bourgeoisie for having graciously permitted them to kill off millions of their fellow wage slaves in a war for the division of imperialist booty. Uh, it is probably impossible in the present war to skin the oxen of wage labor any more than has been done already. This is
Skin
one of
the oxen. I like that. That's a good metaphor. Um, no, I will come on any show, anytime, any day. I can stay up late at night. I can drink coffee, and yeah, there is no scheduling difficulty. Just I will come on any place that invites me. Okay, go ahead.
It is probably impossible in the present war to skin the oxen of wage labor any more than has been done already. This is one of the profound economic reasons for the turn we now observe in world politics. It is impossible because all resources in general are becoming exhausted. The American multimillionaires and their younger brethren in Holland, Switzerland, Denmark, and other neutral countries are beginning to notice the gold mine is giving out. That is, behind the growth of neutral pacifism and not noble humanitarian sentiments as the naive, wretched, and ridiculous Karate, Kautsky, and company think. Added to this is the growing discontent and anger among the masses. In our last issue, we quoted the evidence of Guchkov and Helfferich showing that both dread revolution. It is not about time to stop first. Is it not about time to stop the first imperialist slaughter? The objective conditions compelling cessation of the war are thus supplemented by the influence of the class instinct and the class interest of the profit-glutted bourgeoisie. The political turn based on this economic turn follows two main lines. Victorious Germany is driving a wedge between her main enemy, England, and England's allies. She is able to do this because it is these allies and not England who have sustained and may yet sustain the heaviest blows, and also because German imperialism, having amassed a considerable amount of loot, is in a position to make minor concessions to England's allies.
Okay, I have a question. Is it mine or is Matt's audio kind of weird? Can people tell me in the chat if the Matt's audio is a little fudgy or is it me?
Well, there's nothing I can do about it on this end if it's me. So
I know, but if it's okay, so there's one probability is that my you're coming out fine, but I'm just not hearing you fine, and then there's no problem because it's just me and I can adjust to that. So can somebody just
Is this better?
Yes, much better. There is
Okay.
a little okay, continue, Matt.
Where was I?
Guchkov and
I
Hel
was a little further away from that. Uh, okay,
Objektivna.
okay. I'll just start here. Added to this is the growing discontent and anger among the masses. In our last issue, we quoted the evidence that Guskov and Helferic.
Oh, hold on. I need to stop about this. Okay. I actually did an episode called The True Story of the Magnitsky Act. Bill Browder actually sent a cease and desist letter trying to sue me to shut me up. But this episode is on historically.net, where we interview the film director of behind the Magnitsky Act, and you understand that everything he does is a lie. So what happened is that he tried to defraud mentally disabled people, and he got caught. And so after he got caught, he ran away from Russia, and then he's trying to sanction the prosecutor and the police officers and so on. So please check out our episode called The True Story of the Magnitsky Act on historically.net.
Excellent.
Okay, continue.
Uh,
Sorry about this.
no, sorry, I completely lost my place.
Well, no, it's my fault because we don't have Janet to stop us from ADHDing.
No, that has nothing to do with it. I just totally lost my place.
No, I ADHD'd by like stopping to read. Okay, hold on, let me read. Okay, I cannot, for the revolution is growing, and I cannot answer for the army, whose generals are in correspondence with Guchkov, and whose officers are mainly yesterday's high school boys. Is there any point in my risking my throne and your losing a good partner? Of course not, Wilhelm must have replied, if such a suggestion was put to him directly or indirectly. Indeed, why should we conclude an open, separate peace, any written peace treaty? Can't we achieve the same results by other, more subtle means? I will openly appeal to all humanity, offering to bestow upon it a blessing of peace. At the same time, I will drop quite a hint to the French to let them know that I am prepared to give back nearly all of France and Belgium in return for a fair share of their African colonies. I will let the Italians know that they can count on scraps of Austria's Italian lands, and in addition on a few scraps in the Balkans. I can bring these proposals and find plans of the knowledgeable of the peoples. Will the English be able to retain their West European allies after all? You and I will divide Romania, Galicia, Armenia. As for Constantinople, my august brother, you stand as much of a chance of seeing it as of seeing your own ears. And Poland too, my august brother. You stand as much chance of seeing it as of seeing your own ears. Whether or not such a conversation actually took place, it is impossible to say, nor does it matter very much. What does matter is that the events have taken precisely this turn. If the arguments of the German diplomats were unable to convince the Tsar, the arguments of Mackenson's army in Romania must have been more convincing. The plan to divide Romania between Russia and the Quadruple Alliance, Germany's allies Austria and Bulgaria, is already being openly discussed in the German imperialist press. Lucius Herve is already blurting out, it will be impossible to compel the people to fight any longer if they learn that we can immediately get back Belgium and France immediately. The pacifist simpletons of the neutral bourgeoisie have already been put into action. Wilhelm has loosened their tongues, and the pacifist wiseacres among the socialists, Turati in Italy and Kautsky in Germany, are exerting all their humanitarianism, their love of humanity, their celestial virtue, and their high intellect to embellish the coming imperialist peace. Yeah, ADHDing is a verb. It's where you, because of ADHD, like quit half sentence and start arguing with the comment section because they defamed the Stasi or something like that. That is ADHDing.
There's still more to the piece, isn't there?
No. See, I was trying to show an example of me ADHDing by ADHDing. See, you guys didn't get the joke. Okay. In general, how well things are arranged in the best of all possible worlds. We, the financial kings and the crown robbers, got ourselves entangled in the politics of the imperialist plunder. We had to fight. Well, what of it? We are making as good a thing out of war and as we make out of peace, and a much better thing, in fact. We have lackeys in plenty, and all of the Plekhanovs, the Albert Thomases, Legions, Schneidemans, and co. to proclaim ours a liberation war. The time is coming to conclude an imperialist peace. Well, suppose it is. There are the war debts. Aren't they the obligation guaranteeing our sacred right to exact 100-fold tribute from the peoples? Aren't there simpletons to glorify this imperialist peace, to fool the peoples by sentimental speeches? We have them plenty. Turati, Kautsky, and other leaders of the world socialism. Tragic comedy of Turati's and Kautsky's utterances is precisely that they do not understand the real objective political role they are playing, the role of parsons to console the people instead of rousing them to revolution, the role of bourgeoisie advocates who, by means of flamboyant phrases about good things in general and a democratic peace in particular, obscure, cover up, embellish, and cloak the hideous nakedness of an imperialist peace that trades in nations and carves up countries. What unites the social chauvinists, the Plekhanovs and the Schneidemans, and the social pacifists, Turati and Kautskys, in principle, is that objectively both are servants of imperialism. The former serve it by glorifying the imperialist war and describing it as a war for the defense of the fatherland. The latter serve the same imperialism by glorifying with their talk a democratic peace, the imperialist peace that is maturing and being prepared. Imperialist bourgeoisie needs lackeys of both species and varieties, the Plekhanovs to encourage the continuation of slaughter by shouting down with the conquerors, the Kautskys to console and placate embittered masses of sweet songs of peace. Hence the general amalgamation of the social chauvinists of all countries with the social pacifists, the general conspiracy against socialism, referred to in the manifesto of the Berne Socialist Committee, the general amnesty to which have more than once referred, will not be an accident, but an expression of unity on the principle of both these trends of world pseudo-socialism. There is no accident that Plekhanov, while shouting frantically about treachery and of the Schneidemans, hints at peace and unity with those gentry, when the time is ripe for it. The reader may argue that we can forget that an imperial peace is after all better than an imperialist war. If not the whole, then at least parts of the democratic peace program might be achieved, that an independent Poland is better than Russian Poland. Definitely not. Sorry. An integration of Italy, Australian-held Italian territory is a step forward. But these are exactly the arguments defenders of Turati and Kautsky use as cover. Failing to see this transforms them from revolutionary Marxists to ordinary bourgeoisie reformists. Are you there, Matt?
Yeah.
Okay. Can anyone in his right mind deny that Bismarck Germany and her social laws are better than the pre-1848 Germany? That Stolypin's reforms are better than the pre-1905 Russia? Did the German Social Democrats, they were still Social Democrats at that time, vote for Bismarck's reforms on these grounds? Were the Stolypin's reforms extolled and even supported by the Russian Social Democrats, except, of course, for Mansours, Patresov, Maslov, and company, for whom even Martov, a member of their own party, now turns away with contempt? History does not stand still in times of counter-revolution. History has been advancing during the imperialist slaughter of 1914 to 1916, which is in continuation of the imperialist policies of the preceding decades. World capitalism, which in the 60s and 70s of the last century was an advanced, progressive force of free competition, which at the beginning of the 20th century grew into monopoly capitalism, imperialism, took a big step forward during the war, not only towards the greater concentration of finance capital, but also towards transformation into state capitalism. The form of national cohesion, the significance of national sympathies were revealed in this war, for example, by the conduct of Irish in one imperialist coalition and of the Czechs in the other. The intelligent leaders of imperialism say to themselves, of course we cannot achieve our aims without throttling the small nations. But there are two ways of doing it. Sometimes the more reliable, profitable way is to obtain the services of sincere, conscientious advocates of fatherland defense in an imperialist war by creating politically independent states. We, of course, see to it that they are financially dependent. And this is basically how balkanization works, right?
Yeah, for the most, yeah, pretty much.
It is more profitable when imperialist powers are engaged in a major war to be an ally of independent Bulgaria than the master of a dependent Ireland. To complete what has been left undone in the realm of national reforms may sometimes internally strengthen an imperialist coalition. This is properly taken into account by, for instance, one of the most servile lackeys of German imperialism, Karl Renner, who, of course, is such a staunch supporter of unity in social democratic parties in general, and unity with Schneiderman and Kautsky in particular. Okay, I just need to get a quick... Hola, Milio. I just need to get a quick drink, drink of water. So let's take like a 30-second break. Sorry, yeah, I was a little thirsty, so I took a quick water break.
Well, we won't hold it against you.
Yeah, okay. The objective course of events is having its effect just as executioners of the 1848 and 1905 revolutions were, in a certain sense, the executors. So the stage managers of the imperialist slaughters are compelled to carry out state capitalist and even certain national reforms. Moreover, it is necessary by throwing out a few sops to pacify the masses angered by the war, the high cost of living. Why not promise? And partially carry out for does not commit one to anything reduction of armament. After all, war is a branch of industry similar to forestry. It takes decades for trees of proper size, that is to say, for sufficiently abundant supply of adult cannon fodder to grow up. That's really funny.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, and this is a lot of the nonsense with Ukraine too, is that I read a Rand Corporation report where they were like, well, if Russia takes up Odessa and goes to Transnistria, there'll be like a little rump of a Ukrainian state, but then we can send Nazis weapons and it'll get them time to regroup. So when you read the Rand report, you realize that the only thing that Russia can do is not leave that rump of a Ukraine state. It needs to take it all over. But it's the same thing where, yeah, exactly. So that's what the leaving the stay behind networks is very important for imperialists.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. During these decades, we hope the new Plekhanovs, the new Schneidermans, the new sentimental conciliators like Kautsky will grow up from the depths of united international social democracy. How come we can't get a new Lenin?
The U.S. keeps killing them.
That's the worst thing. Is where are the new? We want. Yeah. That makes me sad that there's no new Lenin.
Yeah.
Okay. Bourgeoisie reformists and pacifists are people who, as a general rule, are paid in one form or to another to strengthen the rule of capitalism by patching it up to lull the masses and divert them from the revolutionary struggle. When socialist leaders like Turati and Kautsky convinced the masses either by direct statement, Turati blurted one out in his notorious speech of December 17, 1916, or by silent evasions, of which Kautsky is a past master, that the present imperialist war can result in a democratic peace while the bourgeoisie governments remain in power without a revolutionary insurrection against the whole network of imperialist world relations. It is our duty to declare such propaganda is a deception of the people, and it has nothing in common with socialism. It amounts to an embellishment of imperialist peace. We are for a democratic peace, and that is precisely we do not want to lie to the peoples as Turati and Kautsky do, of course, with the best of intentions, and for the most virtuous moments. we shall tell the truth, namely that a democratic peace is impossible unless the revolutionary proletariat of England, France, Germany, and Russia overthrows the bourgeoisie governments. And here, only one of those countries successfully did that.
Yeah.
And white people will not to overthrow their bourgeoisie government, so you can't ever rely on white people. I'm sorry. But it's true, and that's the thing too, is that even like with modern day, any conflict in the modern day, you'll still get that because they'll want to obscure all imperialist relations. So ultimately, you can't like have world peace until Americans overthrow their government and get like a Bolshevik, American Bolshevik government, right? Yeah. But at the present moment, Europe is going through a period in which it is more than ever necessary to bear in mind the truth that reforms are a byproduct of revolutionary class struggle. For the task of the day, not because we want it, not because anybody's plans, but because it is objective course of events, is to solve the great historic problems by means of direct mass violence, which will create new foundations, not by the means of agreements on the basis of the old and decaying and the moribund. I can't say it better than he does. That's exactly it. Because like the imperialists, it's like the tale of the scorpion and the frog, where the scorpion will always say, well, imperialists are like that. So they just can't help themselves. It's in their nature to be a scorpion. Any comments, Matt?
No, that's about it.
It is precisely at the present time when the ruling bourgeoisie is preparing peacefully to disarm millions of proletarians and to transfer them safely under the cover of plausible ideology and sprinkling them with holy water of sentimental pacifist phrases from the filthy, stinking, fetid trenches where they were engaged in slaughter to the penal servitude of the capitalist factories, where by their honest toil they must repay the hundreds of millions of national debt. It is precisely at this time that the slogan which our party issued to the people in autumn of 1914, transformed the imperialist war into a civil war for socialism, acquires still greater significance than it had at the beginning of the war. Karl Liebknecht, now sentenced to hard labor, adopted the slogan when he said from the Reichstag tribune, "Turn your weapons against your class enemies within the country." The extent to which present-day society has matured for the transition to socialism has been demonstrated by this war, in which the exertion of national effort called for the direction of the economic life of over 50 million people from a single center. If this is possible under the leadership of a handful of junker aristocrats in the interest of a handful of financial magnates, it is certainly no less possible under the leadership of class-conscious workers in the interest of 9/10 of the population exhausted by starvation and war. Okay. But to lead the masses, the class-conscious workers must understand the litter corruption of socialist leaders such as Turati, Kautsky, and company. These gentlemen imagine they are revolutionary social democrats, and they are very indignant when they are told that their place is in the party of Messieurs Bissoletti, Schneidman, Legion, and Co. But Turati and Kautsky wholly fail to realize that only a revolution of the masses can solve the great problems of the day. They do not have a grain of faith in the revolution. They do not pay the slightest attention to and display the slightest interest in the way it is maturing in the minds and moods of the masses, precisely in connection with the war. Their attention is entirely absorbed in reforms in pacts between sections of the ruling class. It is to them that they address themselves. It is to them that they seek to persuade. It is to them that they wish to adopt the labor movement. But the whole thing now is to get the class-conscious vanguard of the proletariat to direct its thoughts to and muster its forces for a revolutionary struggle to overthrow their governments. Revolutions such as Turati, Kautsky are prepared to accept, i.e., revolutions for which the date and the chances of success can be set in advance, never happen. The revolutionary situation in Europe is a fact. Extreme discontent, the unrest, the anger of the masses are facts. It is on strengthening this torrent that revolutionary social democrats must concentrate all their efforts. Upon the strength of the revolutionary movement, in the event of its not being entirely successful, will depend on what portion of the promised reforms will be realized in practice and what use they will be for further struggle of the working class. Upon the strength of the revolutionary movement, in the event of its being entirely successful, will depend on the victory of socialism in Europe and in the achievement not of an imperialist armistice in Germany's struggle against Russia and England, and in Russia's and Germany's struggle against England, or the United States' struggle against Germany and England, etc., but of a really long-lasting democratic peace. And 100 years later, nothing's changed.
Yeah, not at all.
Literally nothing. Yeah, and I mean, what you notice is that basically they're doing this. I mean, the Ukraine war is, again, a war of imperialist conquest, and now it's Taiwan, and then Syria. Let's not forget Syria. And it's the same actors over and over, like, right?
Yeah, it is.
NATO attacks Syria. NATO, I mean, I just don't. So it's really interesting that nothing changes. And of course, we get trats and anarchists who are like, Assad is like, it's like, okay, so this is the thing. These are the same idiots who tell you that voting for the Democratic Party is lesser evil, but they cannot see that Assad is lesser evil simply by the fact that he doesn't behead children.
Yeah, imagine.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, that's like a universal thing. Is that the nuance that communists are routinely accused of denying pretty much usually just boils down to, no, this guy really is Giga Hitler.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny how, yeah, you get Trotsky saying that there's actually no good people, like, and it's like, no, okay, so most of the people who wanted the civil war with Assad stopped and decided to join forces once they saw the psychos who are on the other side. And yeah, it's the same thing over and over. And I mean, so it's, I mean, and then with Ukraine, you get Mark Hamill. He is with some Mark Hamill. There was a guy with the Sunderland around him, and it's just like, dude, why can't, like, it's like the Nazis in Ukraine are kind of like the moderate rebels in Syria in their brutality. They're very close to each other and how brutal they are.
Well, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Like, that's who the U.S. always backs everywhere they go, is the most violent, destabilizing force they can find.
Exactly. Yeah, they have to. Yeah, I mean, who else is willing to, I don't know, do what's necessary to kill the will of the people? Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, Contras are another example of the same kind of disgusting brutality.
Yep. The never-ending chaos makes it makes it easier to lose a place of its natural resources.
True. And that's what they're doing out of Syria, of course. The drone state that anarchists seem to love, like, literally steals their oil and sells it to Israel.
Oh,
not drone state, the NATO state. The NATO, you know what I'm talking about, the one that we don't name.
Yeah, the USAF gas station.
Okay, let's call it that. The USAF gas station in the northwest east of Syria. Yeah, and it's the same. So yeah, basically, like most of Western media, you have the same kind of losers who are advocating the same thing, and it's yeah, like 100 years later, nothing's fundamentally changed.
Nope, you can like pretty much bookend that to like any Lenin piece, honestly.
Okay, so let's see what the Oh, this one's my favorite. Imperialism and the split in socialism. Let me figure out how to share this. Yep, he took the incubators out of the babies and threw them out the cold, hard flour. So yeah, Jacobin loves glorifying Kautsky. God knows why. But once you realize what Kautsky's role is in all this, which is basically, so back then, remember, there was no India, there was no China, there was no most of Africa. There was no like many African countries. They were all colonies. So, the right of self determination of nations meant that India should not live under English rule, which is we should not, of course, it's disgusting. And China should, all those, like, we should not have, uh, that was the basic crux of the thing. And Kautsky betrayed the third world um, for lack of a better, lack of a better what?
Word.
Word, yeah. So, anyways, this is when the social Second International split because the German Social Democrats decided to vote for war credits in order to pursue their imperialist war.
Right.
Okay, so let's read about this. And so this is where Lenin explains how it happened. So this is weird. Why is this the volume 23 in the English edition, but volume 30 in the Russian edition?
Um, Probably because not everything has been completely translated into English.
Okay. So this means like there's probably a project for me to do. I need to figure out which ones have not been
Or,
translated.
or it could just mean that they're like compiling the works based on like the Julian system instead of the Gregorian system. So.
I don't know. I should check this out. Yeah, this will be a great project for me. Become a paid subscriber at historically.net and subscribe. Please, I need a lot more paid subscribers and we'll get a lot more articles out. So, anyways, let's continue. Is there a connection between imperialism and the monstrous and disgusting victory opportunism in the form of social chauvinism has gained over the labor movement in Europe? This fundamental question of modern socialism. Wait, I need just a 1 minute break. I'm tired again. Can I get another water break for a minute?
Yeah, I don't control that. That's up to you.
No, I know, but I feel bad. But I really need another water break. Drama today, so my energy is drained. Yeah, so that's why I've needed more water breaks than normal.
Well, it's good to stay hydrated.
Exactly, it's good to stay hydrated, but yeah, today was an exhausting day.
Yeah, especially since you're like in a place where there's almost certainly far less lead in the water than there was in the United
Oh
States.
yeah, there is 100. There's yes, much less lead in the water here. Absolutely 100%. I can agree. Yeah.
Yeah, because if anybody in the chat doesn't know, Flint, Michigan is a semi-psyop designed to focus all your attention onto one specific place when there are actually thousands of cities and towns that have lead in their water supply as bad or worse than Fun fact.
Yeah. I'm exhausted. So can you start reading, Matt, and then I'll read after Hathaway?
Yeah, where did we leave off?
Is there I just read the first one. Is there any connection between imperialism and the monstrous and disgusting victory opportunism in the form of social chauvinism has gained over the labor movement in Europe? I just literally read the first sentence.
Oh, really? That's all you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my god, thank you. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. And I should like make a Telegram group for you guys so we can all discuss this, but this is making my heart warm because I need it. I felt so alone and thank you.
Okay. This is the fundamental question of modern socialism, and having in our party literature fully established first the imperialist character of our era and of the present war, and second in the inseparable historical connection between social chauvinism and opportunism, as well as the intrinsic similarity of their political ideology, we can and must proceed to analyze this fundamental question. We have to begin with as precise and full a definition of imperialism as possible. Imperialism is a specific historical stage of capitalism. Its specific character is threefold. Imperialism is monopoly capitalism, parasitic or decaying capitalism, moribund capitalism. The supplanting of free competition by monopoly is the fundamental economic feature, the quintessence of imperialism. Monopoly manifests itself in five principal forms. One, cartels, syndicates, and trusts. The concentration of production has reached a degree which gives rise to these monopolistic associations of capitalists. Two, the monopolistic position of the big banks. Three, four, or five giant banks manipulate the whole economic life of America, France, Germany. Three, seizure of
Nothing's changed that. I mean, if anything, like these giant banks have just merged
wow,
into.
I'm here thinking like, wow, they had five banks doing it. Like,
Exactly.
that's so many. That's so
Yeah.
many.
Yeah, now they've like all, and since the 2008 thing, it's even gotten even smaller. So
Yeah,
that's very funny.
yeah, like seriously, I think it's really like one bank in each country for the most part. Like,
Yeah, most part. Yeah.
three, seizure of the sources of raw material by the trusts and the financial oligarchy. Parenthetically, finance capital is monopoly industrial capital merged with bank capital. Uh,
Correct.
four, the economic partition of the world by the international cartels has begun.
Okay, so hold on. Let me explain the difference. Back then, the economic partition was like there were semi-colonies of England, semi-colonies or full colonies of France, Germany, Belgium, etc. But after World War II, the colonial overlords merged into the IMF, World Bank, new what is it? What is it called? International rules-based.
Rules-based international order.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Exactly. Rules-based international order to like one colonial overlord among. So the colonial overlords have merged too, from having been a few different colonial overlords to just one.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There are already over 100 such international cartels which command the entire world market and divide it, quote, amicably among themselves until war redivides it. The export of capital, as distinct from the export of commodities under non-monopoly capitalism, is a highly characteristic phenomenon and is closely linked with the economic and territorial political partition of the world. Five, the territorial partition of the world, its colonies, is completed. Imperialism, as the highest stage of capitalism in America and Europe and later in Asia, took final shape in the period of 1898 to 1914. The Spanish-American War, 1898, the Anglo.
You know what's really funny? When you talk about, so in the U.S. history books, they'll never ever mention the real cause of the Spanish-American War. They'll mention something about the main bullshit. But then when you realize, oh, it's a war between Spain and America to decide who gets to grab Cuba and who gets to grab Philippines, it makes 100% sense.
And it was also started based on
A lie.
complete demonstrable fiction published by the namesake of the Pulitzer Prize.
Joseph Pulitzer. Yep, it was so, and it said remember the Maine, something like 5,000 people, and that was a complete lie. And the fact that the Pulitzer Prize is named after him should tell you about the caliber of the people who get the Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah, I love whenever people get nostalgic for a time that never existed about ethical or unbiased whatever journalism. I always say that it's a what they're talking about is something so non-existent, so completely fictional. It's amazing Joseph Pulitzer himself didn't write it.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. That's exactly right.
The Spanish-American War in 1898, the Anglo-Boer War in 1899 to
That's
1902.
to that's with the partition of South Africa.
That was also the first implementation of the contemporary concentration camp, I
Yep.
believe.
Eh,
Uh,
yeah, it was gross. Millions were killed. Yeah.
yeah, there's a mistake people make that like the Civil War is the only good war because only USians were killed in it, but like in reality, like there were like 300,000 slaves that were fighting in that war too. But what they're actually thinking of is the Anglo-Boer War.
No, no, no. It was a pure no. There were many Zulu tribes that were purely slaughtered by the
Yeah,
British too.
yeah, that is true.
Okay. Um. So
uh,
yeah,
the Russo-Japanese War, 1904 to
that's where
1905.
Japan got a partition of Korea.
Yep. And the economic crisis in Europe in 1900 are the chief historical landmarks in the new era of world history. The fact that imperialism is parasitic or decaying capitalism is manifested, first of all, in its tendency to decay, which is characteristic of every monopoly under the system of private ownership of the means of production. The difference between the democratic republican and the reactionary monarchist imperialist bourgeoisie is obliterated precisely because they are both is obliterated precisely because they are both rotting alive, by which no means precludes an extraordinarily rapid development of capitalism in individual branches of industry in individual countries and in individual periods. Secondly, the decay of capitalism is manifested in the creation of a huge stratum of rentiers, capitalists who live by clipping coupons. Uh, in each of the four leading imperialist countries, England, USA, France, and Germany, capital insecurities amounts to 100,000 or 150,000 million francs. So, okay,
That's about billion. Okay,
that's
150.
that's
Yeah.
that's like 100 billion.
Yeah. Exactly.
A hundred to 150 billion francs, from which each country derives an annual. I was looking that up. The word billion didn't actually really hit English in common usage until the mid 70s.
Yep. Even today in England, sometimes there's a confusion. Sometimes they just say 100,000 million or something like
Yeah,
that. So
well, yeah, I was rereading neo-colonialism, and like
Kwame.
yeah, Kwame Nkrumah, and like that was 1962, and even then he was still talking about thousands of millions.
Yep.
Like, yeah, and I'm like, wow, how long did it take us to like start saying billions? Like,
I know.
okay, from which each country derives an annual income of no less than 5 to 8,000 million. Thirdly, export of capital is parasitism, raised to a high pitch.
Hold on,
Fourth,
let me explain why it is export of capital. So, for example, because the U.S. is because the IMF trades in U.S. Currency, third world countries who are like having child slaves mining their cobalt need to like sell this in order to acquire U.S. dollars in order to get things like medicine and stuff like that. But the U.S. can just go print, 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 make the money printer go brrr, and so the US doesn't really have to export anything in order to acquire actual goods. So this is where the parasitism comes from. And yeah, and this is why we should be all happier when the IMF World Bank stronghold goes weaker, which it already has been a little by little, but not enough.
fourthly, quote, finance capital strives for domination, not freedom, end quote. Political
Correct?
political reaction all along the line is a characteristic feature of imperialism.
Absolutely.
Corruption, bribery on a huge scale, and all kinds of fraud. Fifthly, the exploitation. Hey, Sam Bankman-Fried. Uh,
Sam
uh,
Bankman-Fried, that's a good one.
yeah. Fifthly, the exploitation of oppressed nations, which is inseparably connected with annexations, and especially the exploitation of colonies by a handful of, quote, great, unquote, powers. Increasingly,
Bingo.
increasingly transforms the quote unquote civilized world into a parasite on the body of hundreds of millions in the uncivilized nations. The Roman proletarian lived at the expense of society. Modern society lives at the expense of the modern proletarian. Marx specially stressed this profound observation of Sismondi. Imperialism somewhat changes the situation. A privileged upper stratum of the proletariat in imperialist countries lives partly at the expense of hundreds of millions in the uncivilized nations. It is clear why imperialism is moribund capitalism, capitalism in transition to socialism, monopoly which grows out of capitalism is already dying capitalism, the beginning of its transition to socialism. The tremendous socialization of labor by imperialism, what its apologists, the bourgeois economists, call interlocking, produces the same result. Advancing this definition of
Hold
imperialism
on. Why? How long is this capitalism going to continue to be dying and not die?
until we pull the plug on it.
It's like 100 years and it's still like it's like more decaying, more
Well,
dying, but it has
well, no,
not been
well,
eaten.
well, no, that's exactly like that's the whole joke is that socialism is the system that's not allowed to live, and capitalism is the system that's not allowed to die.
Ugh, sad.
And man, it wants to so bad,
Yes,
and
somebody. Yeah,
we
somebody.
just keep reviving the fucker. Like it's getting
I
sad.
know,
Like
but
if it wasn't for all the slavery, I would feel bad for capitalism.
well, that's the thing. Right now, I still think right now capitalism is at its weakest thanks to China. That's just like 1 billion, 1.5 billion people under like, and yeah, capitalism. Yeah. Capitalism is definitely the at the weakest point right now than it ever has been in history, especially thanks to like in South America you have Bolivia, Venezuela, and even Brazil is doing a good. It's pretty good job standing up, being a new pole in the Americas. You have China, Vietnam. What else do you have? Laos.
Well, yeah, there's Cuba, the DPRK.
Yeah, Cuba, DPR. Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, it is the weakest it has ever been, and
Transnistria never got rid of its Soviet flag.
no, yeah, I don't even. I need to look at what Transnistria's economy is, and I should maybe go to Transnistria if I need
Oh,
to
you should
look at it.
definitely go to Transnistria.
How
That
do I get there? Somebody needs to teach me. How do? Wait, can I get there without
yeah,
setting
you
foot
have.
on Ukraine?
I don't think so. Like,
Okay, so
if
because
you
it
have
might be
if
not
you
very
don't,
safe for me to set.
yeah, if you don't go through Ukraine, you have to like go around Ukraine and go through Moldova. I think.
But is it possible for me to get there without setting foot on Ukraine?
Technically, yeah, but I don't know what travel to Moldova is like or entails.
Okay, I'll have to check this out. Yeah.
You might be able to fly in uh, directly, but like I think if you're like going like on ground-based transportation, if you're not going through Ukraine, you have to go through Moldova
Okay.
because it's just like a strip of land like in between Moldova and Ukraine, right?
Okay. Do they speak Russian in Transnistria or no?
Uh, yes, yeah,
Ah, okay. Then it should be easy. Because I don't speak Moldovan.
yeah, no, because I think if I remember right, that's part of like the hullabaloo is that they're like they're already a breakaway state where like the Soviet Union never really died, but they're worried that they're going to get more emboldened than they have been over the last 30 years because of the Donbass secession, and then they'd have. You'd have basically Ukraine bookended by these two breakaway republics that became Russian satellite states, and that doesn't really like work for the imperialists, basically.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So Continue to read.
No, I want to look at the. I'm looking at the geography here because yeah, it doesn't look like unless you go through the Black Sea to get
Mm-hmm.
there from the south. It looks like you have to go through Ukraine or Moldova to get there.
Okay.
It actually it doesn't even really look like you can get that you can get through to Moldova through Ukraine, through
Okay.
like anywhere else other than through Ukraine.
Oh Lord. Okay. Okay. I will have to see about this.
It's
I'm
like
going.
it basically, if you look at the eastern Belarusian border and just go like straight down uh, through Ukraine, you end up right in Transnistria. That's where its geography is. So just draw a straight downward line from the eastern Belarusian border and right through Ukraine, you will end up at the top of Transnistria.
Okay. So, anyways, I'm feeling extremely tired today, but let's continue.
Yeah. So basically, you have to go like dead center through Ukraine to get to
Okay.
Transnistria. Like
Maybe
that's
not. Might be not. Maybe it not be the best thing for me.
yeah, that might be a little bit inaccessible, but it also
No,
looks
I mean, I feel like I won't be 100% safely protected in Ukraine.
it also looks entirely possible that you could go through Donbass, get to Crimea, and then probably like take a ferry over. Like, I mean, I don't know, or like hire somebody with a boat. I'm not entirely sure like
Okay.
what the
Let's
travel
think about this.
situation is, but like if it looks like if you go by water, you can get almost directly there.
Okay,
But
let's continue. Here.
okay, imperialism and
Let me continue. Advancing this definition of imperialism brings us into complete contradiction to Kautsky, who refers to regard imperialism as a phase of capitalism, and it defines it as a policy preferred by finance capital, a tendency of industrial countries to annex agrarian countries. Kautsky's definition is thoroughly false from a theoretical standpoint. What distinguishes imperialism is the rule not of industrial capital but of finance capital, the striving to annex not agrarian countries particularly, but every kind of country. Kautsky divorces imperialist politics from imperialist economics. He divorces monopoly in politics from monopoly in economics in order to pave the way for his vulgar bourgeoisie reformism, such as disarmament, ultra-imperialism, and similar nonsense. The whole purpose and significance of this theoretical falsity is to obscure the most profound contradictions of imperialism, and thus justify the theory of unity with the apologists of imperialism, the outright social chauvinism and opportunism. We have dealt at sufficient length with Kautsky's break with Marxism on this point in Social Democratic and Communist. Our Russian Kautskys, the supporters of the organizing committee, they're headed by Axelrod and the Spectator, and even Martov, and to a large degree Trotsky, preferred to maintain a discreet silence on the question of Kautskyism as a trend. They did not dare defend Kautsky's wartime writings, confining themselves simply to praising Kautsky. Axelrod, in his German pamphlet, which the organizing committee has promised to publish in Russian, or to quoting Kautsky's private letters, Spectator, which he says belongs to the opposition and Jesuitically tries to nullify his chauvinist declarations. It should be noted that Kautsky's conception of imperialism, which is tantamount to embellishing imperialism, is a retrogression not only compared with Hilferding's finance capital. No matter how assiduously Hilferding now defends Kautsky in unity with the social chauvinists, but also compared with the social liberal J.A. Hobson. This English economist, who in no way claims to be Marxist, defines imperialism and reveals its contradictions much more profoundly in a book published in 1902. But this is what Hobson, in whose book may be found nearly all Kautsky's pacifist conciliatory banalities, wrote on the highly important question of the parasitic nature of imperialism. Okay, two sets of circumstances, in Hobson's opinion, weakened the power of the old empires: economic parasitism and the formation of armies from dependent peoples. There is first the habit of economic parasitism, by which the ruling state has used its provinces, colonies, and dependencies in order to enrich its ruling. That's the entire purpose of economic imperialism: enrich its ruling class and to bribe into lower classes into acquiescence. Concerning the second circumstances, Hobson writes, one of the strangest symptoms of the blindness of imperialism, this song about the blindness of imperialism comes more appropriately from the social liberal Hobson than from the Marxist Kautsky, is a reckless indifference with which Great Britain, France, and other imperial nations are embarking at this perilous dependence. Great Britain has gone the farthest. Most of the fighting by which we have won our Indian empire has been done by natives, in India as most recently in Egypt. The great standing armies are placed under British commanders. Almost all of our fighting associated with our African dominions, except in the southern part, has been done for us by natives. This is actually this is how they got the comprador gusano class. Actually, so it's actually probably one of the best things, one of the things that helps prolong the empire the longest. Don't you agree, Matt?
Yeah.
That's how you create the gusano class.
Well, I mean, yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
The prospect of partitioning China elicited from Hobson the following economic appraisal. The greater part of Western Europe might then assume the appearance and character of already exhibited by tracts of the countries in the south of England, in the Riviera, in the tourist-ridden or residential parts of Italy, Switzerland, and little clusters of wealthy aristocrats drawing dividends and pensions from the far east, with somewhat a larger group of professional retainers and tradesmen and a larger body of personal servants and workers in the transport trade and in the final stages of production of the more perishable goods. All the main arterial industries would have disappeared, the staple foods, the semi-manufactures flowing in as tribute from Asia and Africa. We have foreshadowed the possibilities of an even larger alliance of Western states, NATO, and a European Federation of Great Powers, the EU, which, so far from forwarding the cause of civilization, might introduce the gigantic peril of Western parasitism. And that's true. A group of advanced industrial nations whose upper classes drew vast tributes from Asia and Africa, with which they supported great tame masses of retainers no longer engaged in the staple industries of agriculture and manufacture, but kept in the performance of personal or minor industrial services, lose the control of the new financial aristocracy. Let those who would scout such a theory, he should have said prospect, as undeserving of consideration, examine the economic and social conditions of districts in southern England today, which are already reduced to this condition, and reflect upon the vast extension of the system which might be rendered feasible by the subjugation of China to the economic control of similar groups of financiers. Investors, rentiers, and political and business officials draining the greatest potential reservoir of the profit of the world has ever known in order to consume it in Europe. The situation is far too complex, play a world forces far too incalculable to render this or any other single interpretation of the future very probable. But the influences which govern the imperialism of Western Europe today are moving in this direction, and unless counteracted or diverted, make towards such a consummation. Hobson, the social liberal, fails to see that this is a counteraction can only be offered by the revolutionary proletariat and only in the form of a social revolution. But he is a social liberal. Nevertheless, as early as 1902, he had an excellent insight into the meaning and significance of United States of Europe, European Union, be it said for the benefit of Trotsky the Kautskyite. Trotsky the Kautskyite. Hi. I had not seen this juxtaposition to process this. And of all that is now being glossed over by the hypocritical Kautskyites of various countries, namely the opportunists, social chauvinists, are working hand in glove with the imperialist bourgeoisie precisely towards creating an imperialist Europe on the backs of Asia and Africa, and that objectively the opportunists are sections of the petty bourgeoisie who have been bribed out of imperialist super profits and converted to watchdogs of capitalism and corruptors of the labor movement. This is like every journalist in America, right?
Yeah, no, this is timely.
Like literally every like I mean I'm writing an article about it's like my compendium on the U.S. press, and what I notice is that even before the State Department comes out as an attack tag, the U.S. press does this. Like Hugo Chavez, no, yesterday the one we got is that Evo Morales was being a threat to democracy by giving everyone voter registration cards. So these people these people preemptively attack like every good government in the world for their capitalist dogs, and they don't even get that much money. Like how much? Like and the worst part is they do it for like something like $60,000 for a year. Isn't that horrible?
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna sell out all of Bolivia and like help, like you have to do it for more than $60,000 a year. Both in articles and the resolution of our party, we have repeatedly pointed to this most profound connection, the economic connection between the imperialist bourgeoisie and the opportunism which has triumphed for long in the labor movement. And from this, incidentally, we have concluded that the split with the social chauvinists was inevitable. Our Katskyites preferred to evade the question. Martov, for instance, where am I? Martov, for instance, uttered in his lectures a sophistry in which the bulletin of organizing committee secretariat abroad is expressed as follows. The case of revolutionary social democracy would be in a sad, indeed hopeless plight if the group of workers who in mental development approach most closely to the intelligentsia and who are most highly skilled fatally drifted away from it towards opportunism. Okay, what am I doing now? I forgot. Oh, by the means of a silly word fatally and a certain sleight of hand, the fact is evaded that certain groups of workers have already drifted away to opportunism and to the imperialist bourgeoisie. AFL-CIA, anyone? And that is the very fact the sophists in the OC want to evade. They confine themselves to the official optimism the Kautsky at Hilferting, many others now flaunt. Objective conditions guarantee the unity of the proletariat and the victory of the revolutionary trend. We, forsooth, are optimists. We are with regards to the proletariat. But in reality, these Kautskyites, Hilferting, OC supporters, Martov Company are optimists with regards to opportunism. That is the whole point. Proletariat is the child of capitalism, of world capitalism, not only of European capitalism, but of imperialist capitalism. On a world scale, 50 years sooner or 50 years later, measured on a world scale, this is minor point. Proletariat, of course, will be united. Revolutionary social democracy will inevitably be victorious within it. But that is not the point, Messieurs Kautskyites. The point is that at the present time, in the imperialist countries of Europe, you are fawning on the opportunists, who are alien to the proletariat as a class, who are the servants, the agents of the bourgeoisie, the vehicles of its influence, and unless the labor movement rids itself of them, it will remain a bourgeoisie labor movement. By advocating unity with the opportunists, with the Legions, the Davids, the Plekhanovs, I can't do this, and the Petrusovs, you are objectively defending the enslavement of the workers by the imperialist bourgeoisie with the aid of its best agents in the labor movement. The victory of the social democracy on a world scale is absolutely inevitable. Only it is moving and will move, is proceeding and will proceed against you. It will be a victory over you. These trends might even say two parties in the present-day labor movement, with which 1916 through 1940 so obviously parted ways all over the world, are traced by Engels and Marx in England throughout the course of the decades, roughly from 1852 to 1892. Neither Marx nor England lived to see the imperialist epoch of world capitalism, which began not earlier than 1898 to 1900. But it has been a peculiar feature of England that even in the middle of the 19th century, she has already revealed at least two major distinguishing features of imperialism: vast colonies and monopoly profit. Due to her monopoly position in the world market, both respects England at the time was an exception among capitalist countries. England and Marx analyzing this exception Engels and Marx analyzing this exception quite clearly definitely indicated its connection with the temporary victory of opportunism in the English labor movement. In the letter to Marx dated October 7th, 1858, Engels wrote, "The English proletariat is actually becoming more and more bourgeoisie, so this is the most bourgeoisie of all the nations, is apparently aiming ultimately at the possession of the bourgeoisie aristocracy and the bourgeoisie proletariat alongside the bourgeoisie. For a nation which exploits the whole world, this is, of course, to a certain end, justifiable." In a letter to Sorge, dated September 21st, 1872, Engels informs him that Hales kicked up a big row in the Federal Council on the International and secured a vote to censure Marx for saying that the English labor leaders had sold themselves. Marx wrote to Sorge on August 4th, 1874, "As to the urban workers here in England, it is a pity that the whole pack of leaders did not get into Parliament. This would be the surest way of getting rid of the whole lot." In a letter to Marx dated August 11th, 1881, Engels speaks about those very worst English trade unions which allowed themselves to be led by men sold to or at least paid by the bourgeoisie. Randy Weingartner. I don't know, whenever I think of like the bourgeoisie trade unions, I always think of Randy Weingartners and the teachers union. Yeah, I mean, she's the strongest example of like she once like tried to do this charter school thing with. She's just a disgusting. Can I shit on? I should be. Can I like shit on her? I should, right? Openly, I should not be afraid.
No,
right?
I don't think anyone cares.
Okay, good. She's like the worst thing. Like, not to mention her trips to Ukraine in 2014 when she went to Maidan Square and somehow didn't see Nazis.
Yeah, well, I mean that's a common Western trait.
Yeah, I don't see a swastika. No, they're Hindus.
Yeah. Oh, is she the one who started that?
No, that was a joke. I started, yeah. But she claims that she saw and that's not possible to see no Nazis in Maidan Square in February of 2014.
Yeah.
Unless you're blind. In a letter to Kautsky dated September 12th, 1882, Engels wrote, "You ask me what the English workers think about colonial policy? Well, exactly the same as they think about politics in general. There is no workers' party here. There are only conservatives and liberal radicals, and the workers gaily share the feast of England's monopoly of the world market and the colonies." Still true. On December 7th, 1889, Engels wrote to Sorge, "The most repulsive thing here in England is the bourgeoisie respectability which has grown deep into the bones of the workers. Even Tom Mann, whom I regard as the best of the lot, is fond of mentioning that he will be lunching with the Lord Mayor. If one compares this with the French, one realizes what a revolution is good for after all." In a letter dated April 19, 1890, "But under the surface of the movement of the working class in England is going on, is embracing even wider sections of mostly just among hitherto stagnant lowest Engels italic strata. The day is no longer far off when the mass will suddenly find itself, when it will dawn upon it that it itself is this colonial mass in motion." Did not happen yet. On March 4th, 1891, the failure of the collapsed Dockers Union, the old conservative trade unions, the rich and therefore cowardly, remained lone on the field. September 14th, 1891. At the Newcastle Trade Union Congress, the old unionists, opponents of the 8-hour day, were defeated, and the bourgeoisie papers recognized the defeat of the bourgeoisie Labour Party. Engels italics wrote. These ideas were repeated by Engels over the course of decades, were so expressed by him publicly in the press, is proved by this preface to the second editions of The Conditions of the Working Class in England in 1892. He speaks of an aristocracy among the working class, of a privileged minority of workers, in contradistinction to the great mass of working people. A small, privileged, protected minority of the working class alone was permanently benefited by the privileged position of England in 1848 to 1868, whereas the great bulk of them experienced at best a temporary improvement. With the breakdown of that England's industrial monopoly, English working class will lose that privileged position. Members of the new unions, the unions of unskilled workers, had this immense advantage that their minds were virgin soil, entirely free from the inherited respectable bourgeoisie prejudices which hampered the brains of the better situated old unionists. The so-called workers' representatives in England are people who are forgiven in their being members of the working class because they themselves would like to drown their quality of being workers in the ocean of liberal. I love this one. Beautiful, right?
Yep.
Oh, this is long. Okay, I hope we can finish this on. Um, um, how many more? Uh, can we finish this next week? Because I'm really, really tired today.
Yeah, no, that's fine because I have to run anyway.
Okay, sorry people. Please become paid subscribers. We really need the money. We're losing a lot of subscribers, but we will get back our articles. I had a writer's block for a long time. I'm getting rid of my writer's block, so I'll be back to being a lean, mean article writing machine. But I really need paid subscribers. So please go to historically.net and become a paid subscriber. We really need your help. Okay, Smrti fascismus, svobodu narodu.
Slava Leninu.